إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه وخليله. بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة، فكشف الله به الغمة، وتركنا على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك، فصلوات ربي وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، فبعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم إن زلزلة الساعة شيء عظيم، يوم ترونها تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت وتضع كل ذات حمل حملها وترى الناس سكارى وما هم بسكارى ولكن عذاب الله شديد. All praise is due to Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Whoever Allah guides will never be misguided, and whoever Allah misguides will never be guided. And I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Muhammad is his servant and Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Dear brothers and sisters, I wanted to share the story of a Sahabi that has so many lessons that we can grasp. And inshallah we're going to focus on one of these lessons towards the end, inshallah. So this Sahabi's name is Rabi'a ibn Ka'b. And Sayyidina Rabi'a, he embraced Islam in his youth. And once Islam entered his heart, it lit up Iman, subhanAllah. And Sayyidina Rabi'a was amongst the Ahlul Sufa, the people of Sufa, which was a place at the back of the Masjid al-Nabawi that was shaded, where it was designated for those who didn't have a place to go or people that they can go to. So it was a lot of the poor people lived there. And the Prophet ﷺ would actually send a lot of donations their way, and whenever he received a gift, he'd take a portion and send some of it to Ahlul Sufa. And so Sayyidina Rabi'a was amongst them, amongst the poor who didn't have a place to go. And when Sayyidina Rabi'a first saw the Prophet ﷺ, he loved him so much. He loved him deeply, more than anyone else. And he decided, he told himself, "Oh Rabi'a, why don't you put yourself in service of the Prophet ﷺ? And that can be, means for you to attain happiness in this dunya and in the hereafter." And that's what he did, and the Prophet ﷺ accepted him as a personal servant to him. And Sayyidina Rabi'a accompanied the Prophet wherever he went, and he was at his service for whatever the Prophet ﷺ needed. And he was with him everywhere and every day. And even when the night came, after Salatul Isha, the Prophet ﷺ would go to his house. And Sayyidina Rabi'a would be going to the masjid. But then he'd tell himself, "Oh Rabi'a, where are you going to go? And what if the Prophet ﷺ needed something during the night? Where are you going to be?" And so he went and sat by the door of the Prophet ﷺ's house, listening to the Prophet during his Qiyamul Layl or doing his tasbih. And while him sitting there through the night, he says, while the Prophet ﷺ is busy in ibadah, I would either, my eyes would get the best of me and I'd fall asleep, or I get tired and I'd go to the masjid. And this was the life of Sayyidina Rabi'a. And the Prophet ﷺ would always try to repay whoever does good to him. And so one day he goes to Sayyidina Rabi'a and he tells him, "Oh Rabi'a ibn Ka'b, ask me anything and I will give it to you." And obviously this is the one miracle that you get, the one request that you get that will definitely be answered. We're talking about the Prophet ﷺ, whose dua is answered. And so this is a golden opportunity. And Rabi'a knew this. And so he tells the Prophet ﷺ, "Oh Ya Rasulullah, give me a day. Let me think about it. This is a very important decision. You're getting one promise, one request that will definitely get answered." Of course he had to think about it. But also, look at Sayyidina Rabi'a, how he thought about things. How he calculated things. Because he's not the only person that the Prophet ﷺ said this to. But the request that Sayyidina Rabi'a made was very unique. And we'll see, inshallah, how. So, Sayyidina Rabi'a went to his place. And he started thinking, okay, I am poor. I don't have much. I don't have a house. I don't have a lot of things. But, this dunya is temporary. And it will all go. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written the rizq for everyone. And, everyone will get it no matter what in this dunya. So, it's better for me to ask something for the hereafter. Because that's what's going to stay and that's what's going to remain. And that's what Sayyidina Rabi'a did. He concluded on that this world is temporary, so I gotta ask for something for the hereafter. So he goes to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ tells him, "So, O Rabi'a, have you thought about what you want to ask me?" And Sayyidina Rabi'a says, "I ask you to beseech Allah to make me your companion in paradise. أسألك مرافقتك في الجنة." What type of question is this? What type of request is this? I ask you to be your companion, not here, in the hereafter, in Jannah. And this is a very smart request on so many levels. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ will be in a place in Jannah that many will be hard to reach to. And so if he just cuts it short, and I ask you to be your companion in Jannah, then he's already at the highest levels. Right? And so the Prophet ﷺ, he wondered, he asked him, "Who advised you to ask this?" He said, "Oh Rasulullah, no. I was talking to myself and I found that, nothing of this dunya will be worth it. So something from the hereafter, and this is the question that I received." And so the Prophet ﷺ stayed quiet for some time, for a long time. And then he came back to Sayyidina Rabi'a. He told him, "Then assist me for your sake by performing a lot of sujood, a lot of prostration. أعني على نفسك بكثرة السجود." And that's what Sayyidina Rabi'a did. He tried to increase in worship and increase in sujood as well. But the story of Sayyidina Rabi'a doesn't end here. The Prophet ﷺ, he then saw Rabi'a, and he told him, "Oh Rabi'a, wouldn't you get married?" And Sayyidina Rabi'a, look at the beautiful answer. He said, "Oh Rasulullah, I wouldn't want anything to come between me and your service, to divest me or distract me from your service. And I don't have anything to support. I'm poor." And the Prophet ﷺ left him. And so the second time, the Prophet sees him and he asks him the same question. And Sayyidina Rabi'a answers the same answer. But this time, Sayyidina Rabi'a pauses and he tells himself, okay, there's definitely something that the Prophet knows that I don't know. And if anything, the Prophet ﷺ knows what's best for me. And he knows me more than I know myself. So if he asks me once more, I'm going to tell him, sure. And that's what happened. The Prophet ﷺ sees him and he asks him, and Sayyidina Rabi'a says, then yes, Ya Rasulullah. And then the Prophet ﷺ advised him on a house, on a family, and he tells him, tell them that the Prophet ﷺ sent me. And then the Prophet ﷺ supports him as well with the fees of the marriage. And in Sayyidina Rabi'a's marriage, there's also, subhanAllah, we see the beauty of submitting to the order and to the preference of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ gives him a land beside Sayyidina Abu Bakr. And Sayyidina Rabi'a builds a house over there. But there was a tree in the middle of the land between him and Sayyidina Abu Bakr, right on the fence. And so Sayyidina Rabi'a and Sayyidina Abu Bakr, they disputed. Sayyidina Rabi'a said, this is my tree, this is part of my land. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr tells him, no, this is my part of my land. And so they keep going on this. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr gets a little bit angry. And he curses Sayyidina Rabi'a, tells him something heavy. And Sayyidina Rabi'a, is a bit in shock, but he stays quiet. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr right away realizes what he did, and he's taken by that mistake. And he tells Sayyidina Rabi'a, oh Rabi'a, tell me the same thing back. Because it's qasas, do to me what I did to you, and we'll be fair and equal. And Sayyidina Rabi'a tells him no. And so Sayyidina Abu Bakr gets angry, and he tells him, then I'll go complain about you to the Prophet ﷺ. And even though Sayyidina Abu Bakr is in fault, he's going to complain to the Prophet ﷺ because Rabi'a did not tell him back what he told him. And Sayyidina Rabi'a refuses. And he also goes to the Prophet ﷺ. And on the way, his tribe, his family around him, they tell him, well, Sayyidina Abu Bakr is wrong. This is your right, and he cursed you, so he's in the wrong. So it's part of your right. And from a perspective, they are correct. Sayyidina Abu Bakr is the one who is in fault. But look at the adab of Sayyidina Rabi'a. He tells them, how dare you? Do you know who we are talking about? This is As-Siddiq, the forefront of Muslims. He was one of the earliest to believe Islam. And I'm afraid that Sayyidina Abu Bakr would get angrier about what you said. And then the Prophet ﷺ will get angry through Sayyidina Abu Bakr's anger. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will get angry due to His Prophet and Sayyidina Abu Bakr's anger. And all of this will fall on me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be angry upon Rabi'a. Look at the level that Sayyidina Rabi'a thought of and how far he went. And so he goes to the Prophet ﷺ. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr has already told the Prophet ﷺ about what happened. And the Prophet ﷺ doesn't even look at Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he looks at Rabi'a right away. And he tells him, and he asks Rabi'a, what happened? And so Sayyidina Rabi'a tells the Prophet about what happened, and that Sayyidina Abu Bakr told him a tough word. He didn't even say the word to the Prophet ﷺ because of how beautiful the character and the adab they had. And so the Prophet ﷺ, and he continues, he says, he told me this word and he wanted me to say it back, but I didn't. And the Prophet ﷺ says, yes, you shouldn't say it back. And instead, say, oh Allah, forgive Abu Bakr. Oh Allah, forgive Abu Bakr. And right away, Sayyidina Rabi'a said, oh Allah, forgive Abu Bakr, submitting to the commandment of the Prophet ﷺ. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr replied by saying, may Allah reward you with goodness for my sake, O Rabi'a ibn Ka'b. SubhanAllah. There's so many lessons from this story, but there's a few we're going to focus on, inshallah. Number one, which is mentioned at the end, the greatness of forgiveness. Sayyidina Rabi'a had all the right, to receive whatever type of compensation he wanted. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr was in fault. Yet, Sayyidina Rabi'a forgave him. He was worried that he was going to complain to him about the Prophet ﷺ for not telling him the word back, and made dua for him on top of that. What did Sayyidina Rabi'a get? In reality, not much on paper, but in the scales of the hereafter, so much. So, forgiveness is key. And whenever someone, takes something from our rights, don't forgive them for them. Forgive them for yourself. Because whoever forgives someone in this dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him on the day of judgment. Another thing is submitting to the commandment of the Prophet ﷺ and of Allah. Rabi'a right away, submitted. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ told him something, he'd do it. And fast. And another lesson we can learn is continuous self-reflections. Right? One of the beauty in this narration is that Rabi'a is talking to himself. It's like, did I make the right decision here? Did I say the right thing here? You know? And this continuous accountability is very important because it corrects us, it gets us back to the right path. It allows us to think about our actions and correct them for the future. And finally, look at the dua, the request that Sayyidina Rabi'a made. He prioritized the akhirah, the hereafter, over this dunya, over this life. And he set high goals. He had clear objectives. And he surrounded everything around that. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة على من لا نبي بعده وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. That request that Sayyidina Rabi'a made shouldn't go unnoticed. That request should set the standard for us in terms of what should our objective be in this life. What do we want to attain from this life, and where do we want to end in the hereafter? How do we want our ending to look like? All of these are serious questions that will shape how we navigate this dunya and how we navigate this life. Aiming high is very important, right? When someone has very high goals, they're not going to live a normal life. Their life is going to be surrounded by that goal. Every decision, every choice they make will be determined by that objective. Does this decision serve me in attaining this objective? Is it a part of the path? Is it a piece of the puzzle? Or is it not? Because if it's not, then I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to focus on what supports me and helps me to get there. And this is very important, that we're intentional with everything that we do. Every decision, every second that we spend. You know, and we pass through so many decisions in our life. What job I'm going to do, where I'm going to put my kids for school, where I'm going to choose to live. And there's always pros and cons. But the question is, where's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this equation, from this decision? How is this decision going to serve me if I move to this place? How is this getting me closer to my objective in the hereafter? Or is it getting me further? If it is, then the choice is clear. And the Sahaba had the same mentality, being intentional with everything. And there was two Sahaba that were discussing different ibadah strategies. One was like, no, I'd rather stay the whole night and spend it in qiyam and worship. And the other one, he told them, I'd sleep a little bit and then I'd wake up and pray for a little bit. Because I'm intentional in my sleep as much as I'm intentional in my prayer. So even the sleep that they had, they intended with it and they got rewarded for it. And so every second and everything that we do, every decision, we have to be intentional. So, brothers and sisters, let's recalibrate our goals and objectives and see where we stand from them. Let's reflect on, are we aiming for the highest that we can aim for? And after that, are we living the life? And are we at the standard that gets us to that objective? And another thing we should do is let's increase our worship, let's increase our prostration. If we want to attain the closeness and companionship of the Prophet ﷺ, then let's follow his advice. Let's increase our love for him by learning about his sunnah, about his history, about the decisions and his life he made. Let's get closer to him ﷺ in this dunya by following his sunnah and practicing what he preached. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us his closeness and nearness in the hereafter. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in Iman and to raise our efforts and to allow us to set high objectives and to allow us to reach them and to grant us paradise and to grant us the company of our beloved Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to also alleviate any hardship that any of our brothers and sisters across the world and in Palestine are facing. اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من سخطك والنار. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى. اللهم اسكننا الفردوس الأعلى من الجنة. اللهم ارزقنا حسن خاتمة. اللهم ارحم موتانا واشف مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا وارفع البلاء عنا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.